Turn-based strategy. A chance to carefully plan your attacks and watch them come to fruition, outmaneuvering your opponent like some fearsome hybrid of Niccolo Machiavelli and Garry Kasparov. Or, if we're being realistic about it, a chance for the AI to beat you in 2 turns and wait in delight for your inevitable defeat to dawn on you 10 minutes later. Knowledge is power on the turn-based battlefield, so if you're just getting to grips for the first time with the 3rd game, or even starting right at the beginning, we can offer battlefield reinforcements for you made of vital information. Go forth with these tips and save us all from eternal darkness. You'll notice quite early on in your first battle that strength and armour are important stats in the Banner Saga. When you select an enemy to damage, you get the option to hurt their armour in blue or their strength in red. Knocking down that strength number to 0 is what actually kills enemies, but their armour number decides how much strength damage you can actually inflict, along with your chances of missing. With all that in mind, it's often a good idea to chip off a bit of armour with your first attack on an enemy, unless their strength is crazy high, or you can kill them in one blow. And when you're mulling over which stat to target, remember this: your strength minus their armour equals damage dealt. You can use that quick sum to figure out whether you'll kill an opponent on your next turn, or whether you need to target their armour and wait for your next turn to deliver the killer blow. By the way, that little sum works the other way around too, which leads us to our next nugget of information. So, if our strength minus their armour tells you how much damage you'll deal, then their strength minus your armour tells you how much they'll hurt you if they attack. This is important because it unlocks the maiming strategy. If their strength number falls below your weakest unit's armour, they won't be able to deal any strength damage to any of your units. Look at them with 1 strength left, hobbling around, trying to make themselves useful by chipping away at your armour. Ha! Who's the tough guy now? The advantage of maiming enemies instead of killing them is that when all their units are still alive, they'll have to cycle through all those useless wretches and spend their turns being pretty darn ineffective. If you kill those enemies instead, sure, they're dead, but the remaining enemy units now cycle much quicker, which means they're more agile. If you've got 5 units left and they have 3, those 3 get 1.5 turns for every turn you have. So next time you've got that blood-soaked sword above your head, ready to cleave an enemy in 2, consider whether it might be smarter to leave them maimed for a while instead. Leveling your characters up is a huge part of the game, and since you have so many of them in your roster, it's something you'll do often. The attributes you can level up each time are strength, armour, break, willpower, exertion, and ability. Since strength acts as both your health and your damage, it's tempting to chuck all your points into this one stat for every character, and straddle the battlefield as gods. This isn't an outright bad idea for some characters, like the enormous Vals, who are there primarily as damage dealers in the first place, but you want a few different roles in your roster. So let's explore what the other attributes really do. We've talked about armour and its importance before, so let's move on to its cousin, break. This number determines how much you can chip of an opponent's armour stat with each hit, and it's unaffected by anyone's strength stat. It's handy to have at least one character in your roster who's a bit of a specialist at breaking armour. Willpower works like a kind of Norse supercharge, boosting your unit's movement, damage, and abilities until it's defeated. So boosting it on the level up screen is the only way to give a unit more of it. Things get a bit more complicated with exertion, which determines how much you can use your willpower to boost your movement and combat. So if you have 2 willpower and 2 exertion, you can either do 2 more damage, move 2 more tiles, or do 1 of each. And to round it off, ability is exactly what it sounds like. It levels up your character's ability. Once you get to grips with this, you can start thinking about roles for your fighters. Maybe you want to send a tank into the fight with jacked up strength and armour, and accompany them with a weaker ally whose willpower and exertion give them amazing agility, so they're always distracting the enemy by moving about. Experimentation plays a big part in levelling, but now you know the basics. There are 2 aspects of turn-based combat: knowing what to do, and knowing where to be when you do it. And when, I suppose. Oh, and keeping an eye on your overall health. That's another one. Oh, and who to bring to the fight, and how to level them up. Okay, alright. So there are... hang on, 6 important aspects of turn-based combat. But look, it's those first 2 that really matter. The what and the where. Positioning your units strategically makes all the difference in the Banner Saga, so even though it's tempting just to send everyone barreling into the fight, forethought pays off in the end. Vals take up 4 tiles, the big Viking juggernauts. This can be handy because it means you can block opponents off from getting to your squishier units, but you can also accidentally block your other units' movement if you're not careful. If you field 2 Vals, pay particular attention to the paths your other units should take to get around. The same goes for giving ranged units a good line of sight on their foes, leaving escape routes for the weaker units, and making sure the enemy doesn't surround one soldier and pummel them into oblivion before anyone else can reach them. The first time you bring a Val into battle, an inevitable thought pops into your head. Why don't I just send in all my Vals all the time? They're enormous, deal more damage than an ill-advised drunken Twitter rant, and frankly look fantastic. Why on earth would you want to ration that? Well, because you've also got a bunch of skilled archers just sitting around on the bleachers if you do, not to mention units with unique abilities like Chain Lightning. And what about that one guy you decided to make an armor break specialist by pouring tons of points into his break stat? The key to selecting units for your roster, inevitably, is balance. You'll want a few different attacking ranges, a special ability or 2, and some varied mobility options to keep your enemy guessing. And that'll do for our beginner's tips. Leave your own strategies and schemes in the comments below for other newbie Viking warlords to find, and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. We'll catch you next time.